Cross-hatching is our next technique. I like it particularly as a way of blending skies, so you get this really natural woven color in your skies. To cross-hatch on painting means to apply paint in an X pattern that makes almost a woven brush stroke. It blends those variations. It gets all these rich changes. You're mixing the paint on the canvas, but you're kind of doing it in an organized fashion, so it makes a very controlled surface. Alright, let's try this. So the first thing I do is I'll put some of the cerulean blue down. So I'm going to cross-hatch some of this in, and I'm painting in a very controlled stroke of, painting in little X's, X, X, X. It's going to be kind of tricky to get up to the edge, but I think I'll cheat and paint the edge in. Alright, I got a lot of paint on my brush here. I'm going to pull it off and let it sit on that canvas here. Wash my brush. We have this beautiful light green. And I'm going to fill this area up with this other green. Really like this with a couple different colors of blue in the sky as you blend these together. But what I'm going to do is I've got some color over here, and then I'm kind of wet into wet painting, except for I'm consciously doing this cross grain stroking, and you get this woven effect. You can turn your brush over, you can pull the blue down, one color down into the next, one color up into the next. You really don't want it to look like a streaky quality, but it has this beautiful richness for a big area. Instead of painting it a plain across the sky blue, you can get this beautiful subtle transitions with this technique. I'm going to get a little paint off my brush. I'm going to transition this a little softer. I like this in a sky or in an area where you're going to have things to go around things, because you tend to, if you do it up and down or side to side, sometimes you tend to go around things and things look like halos instead of that the ground is in front of it or running behind it. Let me get this a little subtler. Doesn't have to be quite so strong. I don't want it to look like one color, but I really don't want to see the stopping and starting either. And that will be cross-hatching. Wet into wet. We've already talked about this technique. Wet into wet just means we're painting wet paint into another paint. What we just did was a wet into wet technique. Probably several of the things we've just done are wet into wet, but it just means that you're painting additional color onto an already wet area, creating a soft flowing effect. It allows the colors to mix while they're on the surface of the canvas or paper rather than mixing them on the palette. So let's see, I don't have a lot of colors here. Alright, so if I paint this side red, And I paint this brown over here. And come right up to the seam. Right up to the seam. Okay, and then I'm just going to cross over between the two. This is so much easier in oils than it is in acrylics. You can just get a really seamless transition from one color to another. Make my point a little stronger so it's not quite so subtle. I'm going to put a blue over here. I'm just going to lay it right on top, and I'm just going to pull this down. And the transition happens really simple in oil. So here we have from a blue through some purples, kind of losing that red. Yep. Too much. Sometimes these brushes that are really stiff lift off as much color as they put down. You have to really be careful where you touch it. Okay, so this is wet into wet. You have, here we've gone from a yellow, and they have a turquoise over here, and they're getting all the variations that happen in between. You can do it with your finger, you can do it with a paintbrush. It's all about how creative you want to be. This painting is done mostly wet into wet. The artist is putting some paints and colors down, and then while it's still wet, they're painting over top of it, and some of those colors are mixing in, they stack and layer. And this is probably done mostly in a wet into wet technique.